Our reading today is America by Richard Blanco. Although Tia Miriam boasted she discovered at least a half a dozen uses for peanut butter, topping for guava shells in syrup, butter substitute for Cuban toast, hair conditioner and relaxer. Mama never knew what to make of the monthly 5-pound jars handed out by the immigration department until my friend Jeff mentioned jelly. There was always pork, though, for every birthday and wedding, whole ones on Christmas and New Year's Eves, even on Thanksgiving Day, pork, fried, broiled, or crispy skin roasted, as well as cauldrons of black beans, fried plantain chips, and yuca con mojito. These items required a special visit to Antonio's Mercado on the corner of 8th Street, where men in gaballeras stood in Senate blaming Kennedy for everything. Ese hijo de puta. The bile of cumin coffee and cigar residue filling the creases of their wrinkled lips, clinging to one another's lies of lost wealth, ashamed and empty as hollow trees. By 7, I had grown suspicious. We were still here. Overheard conversations about returning had grown wistful and less frequent. I spoke English. My parents didn't. We didn't live in a 2-story house with a maid or a wood panel station wagon, nor vacation camping in Colorado. None of the girls had hair of gold. None of my brothers or cousins were named Greg, Peter, or Marcia. We were not the Brady Bunch. None of the black and white characters on Donna Reed or on Dick Van Dyke's show were named Guadalupe, Lazaro, or Mercedes. Patty Duke's family wasn't like us either. They didn't have pork on Thanksgiving. They ate turkey with cranberry sauce. They didn't have yuca, they had yams, like the dittos of pilgrims I colored in class. A week before Thanksgiving, I explained to my abuelita about the Indians and the Mayflower, how Lincoln set the slaves free. I explained to my parents about the Purple Mountain's majesty, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, the cherry tree, the Tea Party, the amber waves of grain and masses yearning to be free, liberty and justice for all, until finally they agreed this Thanksgiving we would have turkey as well as pork. Abuelita prepared the poor fowl as if committing an act of treason, faking her enthusiasm for my sake. Mama set a frozen pumpkin pie in the oven and prepared candied yams, following the instructions I translated from the marshmallow bag. The table was arrayed with gladiolas. The plattered turkey loomed at the center on plastic silver from Woolworth's. Everyone sat in green velvet chairs we had upholstered with clear vinyl, except Tio Carlos and Toti, seated in the folding chairs from the Salvation Army. I uttered a bilingual blessing, and the turkey was passed around like a game of Russian roulette. Dry, Tio Berto complained, and proceeded to drown the lean slices with pork fat drippings and cranberry jelly. Es mierda roja, he called it. Faces fell when Mama presented her ochre pie. Pumpkin was a home remedy for ulcers, not a dessert. Tia Maria made 3 rounds of Cuban coffee. Then Abuelo and Pepe cleared the living room furniture, put on a Celia Cruz LP, and the entire family began to merengue over the linoleum of our apartment, sweating rum and coffee until they remembered it was 1970 and 46 degrees in America. After repositioning the furniture, an appropriate darkness filled the room. Tio Berto was the last to leave. When I moved into my new house several years ago, my best friend Darby brought me the traditional housewarming gift of bread and salt. May you always have enough of both sustenance and flavor, she said. Bread is a basic food staple in many cultures, from peasant loaves to Mexican tortillas to injera in Ethiopian cookings. So many cultures rely on bread as a staple foodstuff and an example of community, because people have gardens, but few people grow on their own, grow and thresh and harvest and grind their own wheat individually. Instead, bread represents something that is made in community. Also, bread has long represented sustenance. Peasants lived primarily off of a dark rye bread with some porridge of oats and peas and the occasional onion. But food is about more than survival and sustenance. Food is about joy and memory and tradition. So much of our lives are so very different than they were 500 years ago, or 100 years ago, or even 10 years ago. Walk into a public place these days and most people are looking down at their individual devices. We fly in airplanes, we drive cars, we use computers, we have screens everywhere. But something that hasn't changed? When we gather to celebrate, we sit around a table and share food. That is how we and people have celebrated for millennia. The food might look a little different, but we gather around a table and we eat together. Those meals that we share at holidays and other times we gather are one of the bedrock ways we practice being human, ways we practice being a community. Ray Hastings and her husband Tim organized an open table potluck on Thanksgiving for church members and anyone else who wanted to attend here. And there were more than 26 people in the basement on Thursday. And the food was delicious. There was good conversation and there was joy. Because food isn't something that just nourishes our bodies. Food nourishes our souls too. We don't just need bread, we need roses. Hearts starve as well as bodies, bread and roses, bread and roses. Today, in this world of hyper-individuality, we need not just bread, but food that reminds us of our communities. We need foods that help us remember. On my parents' Thanksgiving table, that is creamed onions. Most of our Thanksgiving is pretty traditional. We have turkey and dressing and gravy and mashed potatoes and candied yams, but also every year creamed onions, the little pearl ones. And in my family, my daughters and I, our Christmas and Easter tradition always includes cinnamon rolls and spinach and feta frittata. I make cinnamon rolls with homemade biscuit dough rolled out into a rectangle, spread with butter, layered heavily with brown sugar and cinnamon. It is easy, it is delicious, and it tastes like home to us. So much has changed in our world, and some food traditions change. We don't usually do the Jell-O salad anymore, although my dad did make one to take to the Thanksgiving potluck at his community center. But my friends, I encourage you to lean into the traditions that matter to you. You don't have to do the complicated 24-step recipes that nobody really likes. But the things that make it feel like a holiday, the things that make it feel like home. I watched on Instagram a reel where one family said that their holiday tradition is that they find all of the change they can in the house, and then they go and buy as many chicken nuggets as they can, and the kids eat all the chicken nuggets they can eat on Christmas Day, and that's their tradition. It doesn't matter what your tradition is. It matters that it's yours. It matters that it matters to you. I imagine some of you have seen the movie Ratatouille. Who's seen Ratatouille? Okay, good. It's a movie about a rat who longs to be a chef. He makes his way to Paris. He finds a young assistant who works in a kitchen and hides under his hat, directing his hands and telling him how to cook. The penultimate scene in the movie is an egotistical critic who comes to review the restaurant. When it comes time for the main course, he is presented with ratatouille, a peasant dish in France that involves layers of vegetables cooked together. He tastes it and is immediately transported back to his childhood, to sitting at the kitchen table and his mother putting a bowl of food in front of him. The simple food, perfectly cooked, tastes like home, and the critic is transformed. Food isn't just about fueling our bodies. Food is about feeding our souls, gathering together, joy and tradition and memory. Give us bread and give us roses, or at least cinnamon rolls.